The newest wave of Innistrad Crimson Vow spoilers have been revealed, and this time we have amazing mythic rares, awesome reprints, and we finally get to find out what Edgar Markov is all about.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered to talk about another batch of Innistrad Crimson Vow spoilers, and we've got some fun stuff to look at. So let's dive right in. We're going to start out with Edgar, Charmed Groom. So this is Edgar Markov. I know a lot of people have been waiting to find out what this card is, myself included, since he does figure prominently into the storyline for Crimson Vow, being the groom for the big wedding that the entire set is basically spaced around. So, Edgar Charmed Groom is 1 black, 1 white, and 2 for a 4/4 legendary vampire noble. And he gives all of your other vampires +1/+1 as long as he's on the board. Now, when Edgar Charmed Groom dies, return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. So admittedly, on the front side, it's like, okay, I mean, he's a vampire lord. It's not like super exciting. It doesn't really grab you and shake you and go, I'm super powerful in any kind of way. The flavor behind it, you look at the flavor text, and he's almost got like an old grumpy man, stay off my lawn, kids kind of vibe, where it says, our kind has taken my gift for granted. It's time to correct that folly. And he's like, I created vampirism, and I don't like how you youngins are doing it, so it's time to fix everything by making you all beefier. Like, it's like, how does the flavor text tie in? I mean, the artwork, he is kind of like looking like, I'm out on the lawn. Oh, curse you, kids. He does have a very imperial vibe to him, though, right? Look at that crimson cloak, right? He's got the sword there with the gemstones that match the cloak. He's got this giant, I don't know, like amulet or brooch, whatever you want to call it, that also matches it. He does have the kind of finery you would expect at a wedding, and I do enjoy the whole like background with the huge rising ceilings. Now, the flavor text tied in with the fact that you have like these blood counters that actually look like we've seen the rose petals, I should say, in different places, but they're usually shown in a bright crimson fashion. In this case, they are just shown like kind of deadened, which makes me wonder if he's drawing that blood magic into him, and that's how he is coming back from the grave, because that's what he's all about. Let's take a look at what happens when you transform him. Then you get Edgar Markov's Coffin. Not a super exciting name, but an accurate one. It's a legendary artifact, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white and black vampire creature token with lifelink and put a bloodline counter on Edgar Markov's Coffin. Then if there are 3 or more bloodline counters on it, remove those counters and transform it. So essentially it's just keep using Edgar Markov's blood to make new vampires, and then once you've made enough vampires, then Edgar Markov will get all surly and be like, I don't like the way you're doing things. I'm coming back out of the coffin to complain at you, and at the same time, make you stronger. So, I mean, when you take just the front side of it, he's not that exciting, right? He just gives your other vampires +1/+1, and he's just a 4/4. For the cost you pay, it's kind of whatever. But the fact that he's going to keep coming back, and each time he goes, you're going to flip it over, you're going to get a coffin that generates you a free 1/1 vampire each turn, and then after you've made 3 of them, boom, he comes back, and those tokens are now bigger as well. You know what I mean? Like, that sort of inevitability, the continuation cycle, is pretty appealing overall. It's not too shabby, and I mean, it ties in to the concept of the set pretty well. The artwork is pretty straightforward. It's literally Edgar Markov's coffin set up on this like dais, and you have the all these candles set up around him, and a big old pitcher of blood in case he wakes up and he's thirsty. He wants to have, I don't know, a little sip before he goes back for another nap. Either way, not too shabby a card, but when I looked at the front side of him, I was genuinely a little underwhelmed that he's just like a vampire boosty lord. Now, let's move on to the next card we have to talk about, which is Hopeful Initiate. This is 1 white for a 1/2 human warlock that has training, and training is that new ability that says whenever you attack with a creature that's bigger than him and he's attacking, he gets a +1/+1 counter. So on a little 1/2, that's not too shabby, right? It's only 1 mana to put out. And then you can pay a white and 2 and remove 2 +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control. And I like that this is spread out across your creatures, so you don't have to specifically manage to boost this guy up to be able to use the ability, which makes it more versatile, and it's destroy target artifact or enchantment. So you just have to give up 2 +1/+1 counters, and you can take away your opponent's best artifact or enchantment. That feels like a nice trade-off, and would be okay on a card that didn't have training, but slapping training on it makes this actually a tight little package that I think is going to be more useful than initially meets the eye. And speaking of meeting the eye, I almost had this set as the card that was going to show on the screen at the beginning of the video just because of his face. Like, you know, if you just stare at the card sometimes while I'm talking at the beginning of the video, you might just stare into his eyes and be like, what's with his nose? Does he have a nose ring, or is his nose lifted up all weird? You just stared, and then you're like, wait, what's going on with his head? Is his hair pulled up with like spikes coming out of it? The more you stare at him, the more curious it becomes. It took me a while to notice that there was a ring of floating candles around him above another ring of autumn leaves. They're doing a good job of tying the flavor together for the autumnal like witch coven that they have set up on Innistrad currently, the ones that are trying to get the Celestis activated, led by Catilda. They have a consistent feel to them, and this really does feel super mystical. You've got the ring of candles floating, you've got his eyes glowing, and then you've got his hands where magic is emanating from them, and it looks like it's in the like symbol of magical glyphs. And he's got this crazy kind of like almost tribal sort of gear on as well, so it really ties together awesomely. I like him. He's just lurking in the dark. Very cool, and a card that seems solid, if not like pop your eyes out powerful when you look at it. After that, we've got Cemetery Illuminator. This one feels strong to me. This feels like a strong mythic. 2 blue and 1 for a 2/3 flyer. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. Once each turn, you may cast a spell from the top of your library if it shares a card type with a card exiled with Cemetery Illuminator. So we saw this already when we saw the green variation of this mythic in a previous video. By the way, at the end of this video, there'll be a playlist of all of my spoiler videos for Crimson Vow in case you want to get up to speed on what you've missed. But either way, this is part of at least a partial cycle, if not a cycle across all of the colors, because we've seen the green one, we've seen the black one, here's the blue one. I can't specifically remember the other ones right now, but they probably do exist. I imagine it's a cycle across all 5. Anyhow, this feels really, really solid. As you build up the number of spell types that are under it, you're going to be able to play more and more cards off your deck. Honestly, the only thing that feels like it's going to inhibit that at all is the fact that you'll run into lands on top of the deck. But it feels like you can get a lot of value out of this, especially considering it's blue, and it will allow you to play counterspells and other instants and card draws and stuff like that off the top of your deck on your opponent's turn, because it's once each turn, not just your turn. So as time progresses, this will become more powerful. And of course, you have to be able to swing with it to exile the cards from the graveyard. So if they got pretty good defenses, you might not be able to pull it off. But overall, you can use this to gain tempo and keep flowing forwards with it. And look at the artwork. This is a really intense looking Geist. You've got what looks like a skull up at the top with a body that's made out of these flowing ribbons of tattered cloth. And I love the jagged nature of the cemetery gates that are behind it, and the huge lantern, the chains floating around. It really does evoke a cemetery kind of vibe, and I like that. Moving on. We've got Dream Shackle Geist. More Geist action. 2 blue and 1 for a 3/1 flyer. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose up to 1. Tap target creature, or target creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. This card feels so strong to me. Like, it just makes me think that Magic has progressed so far, and you can get so much for your mana. I remember playing blue decks over 20 years ago. I'm old man. I mean, I'm the Magic historian, so of course I'm old man Magic. But seriously, there's no downside to this card. Oh, it's got 1 toughness. Oh, maybe it's not good enough for the current power level of Standard, which is crazy to me. But it's 3 mana for a 3/1 flyer with no downside, and literally has the upside: tap target creature. Target creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. That's absolutely bonkers. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy to me. I don't know. I look at it and go, this just feels so strong. But then at the same time, it's probably not strong enough to even be relevant in Standard, which blows my mind. But I'm going to keep going on about it. So, turning back to the card. Look at the flavor of it, man. You've got this spirit floating up in the air with its maw, like its ghostly, like a head maw kind of open. It seems almost like a headless being, or it could be an old man with like a floaty ghost beard made of chains. I can't tell 100% because I don't have the high-res artwork, but it's either like a spectral kind of nebulous body where there's just this opening at the top and these chains are reaching out, or it's an old man and his beards of these chains, and they're reaching into people's minds through their eyes, the spectral chains flowing over the head and going into the eyes. Oh, intense flavor. Absolutely amazing. The idea that this can override your mind and it basically just exhausts you, shackles you in dreams, I guess is supposed to be the idea. Either you're tapping a creature, which is putting it to sleep, or you're making it so it doesn't untap, which is keeping it asleep. Pretty terrifying, because it looks like even though this geist is visible, none of these people are aware of what it's doing. So that's super intense to me. Moving on. We've got Hullbreaker Horror. Blue's getting some nice toys. 2 blue and 5 is a lot of mana, but it does have flash. 2 blue and 5 for a 7/8 flash Kraken Horror. This spell can't be countered, so if you want to play a counterspell war, you're not stopping my Kraken. Now, whenever you cast a spell, choose up to 1. Return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand. That spell has to be on the stack if it's not obvious. It's almost like countering it, but not quite. The spell's not actually countered, but it is put back into the person's hand, so they don't actually get to resolve the spell. So you can either choose to return a spell you don't control to its owner's hand, or return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. And that's whenever you cast a spell. It's really strong, but it is also a horrendous amount of mana. So, I mean, I don't expect it to make a big difference in Standard or anything like that. But it's really cool. It's really cool. Look at the artwork. It's literally bursting up from the middle of a ship. The ship's just cracked in half. Bam! Gone. Like, that's just in a moment. Hullbreaker Horror. Oh, like the Flash to me says it comes ripping up from the depths at incredible speed. Just rips this boat in half. Absolutely amazing. And I love the stance too, the power stance of it. I have arrived! Yeah, let's go to a party, bro. It's awesome. Moving on. We've got, I forgot about her. I love this card so much. Okay. Avabruck Caretaker. Oh, so delightful. Heavy on the mana, but still so delightful. 2 green and 4 for a 4/4 human werewolf with hexproof. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control. So it's very similar to the, what is that one called? Luminarch, is it Luminarch? Luminarch or Spyron. It's 1 white and 1, and it lets you put a +1/+1 counter. We've had that in Standard for a while now, right? This doubles it up. You get 2 +1/+1 counters on whatever creature you want. And that's just this side. It's crazy. First of all, though, before we look at the other side, because I'm in haste to go and look at it, take a look at the artwork. It's quite nice, very picturesque. You have a lovely lady in a nice flowing gown. She is out in a meadow with her cute little pup companion, and she has a leash made of flowers. Very idyllic and friendly. Now prepare yourself for the other side. Hollowhenge Huntmaster, 6/6, hexproof. Other permanents you control have hexproof. All your stuff is hexproof. You're this guy and all your other stuff is all hexproofed. And at the beginning of your combat on your turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. I read that and I was just like, this can't be real, man. You literally, all your guys are untargetable and they all get 2+1/+1 counters a turn. It's amazing. I'm in love with this card. It's so awesome. When you look at the artwork, you can see it's the lady from the previous picture there, you know, and her dress is ripped into shreds, which really begs the question. If you know you're a werewolf, why do you keep buying clothes and then just like letting them get destroyed? Why don't you just take them off before you transform? Do you know what I mean? Like, why is she not taking her clothes off before she transforms, right? It's a little bit confusing. Also, you know what? That's going to lead me down a completely different path. Anyhow, I love this card. It's so good. I can't wait to play with it. Moving on. We've got this guy's a weirdo. Hiveheart Shaman, you're a weirdo. I'm saying it. 1 green and 3 for a 3/5 human shaman. Whenever Hiveheart Shaman attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card that doesn't share a land type with a land you control. Put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So essentially, it's just going to allow you to build up all 5 different land types. So if you already have a forest out, you can't get a forest. Same goes for mountain, island, swamp. So it just feels like weird from that regard. But it's got a domain-based ability. Domain is having all 5 land types. So 1 green and 5, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Activate only as a sorcery. I'm going to admit that, like, this guy's a weirdo because he's collecting up these, like, hive of bugs, but it feels like a really solid card. Like, maybe not super powerful, but even on just the surface of it, if you think about just playing it mono green, you've got a 4 mana 3/5, pay 6 mana, make a 2/2 insect token. And as soon as you add another land type in, now it's 6 mana for a 3/3 token. And it just grows to the point where it could be 6 mana, make a 6/6 token. But I don't know, man. There's just something about the artwork, like the beekeeper's hat, and he's got all them bees flying around. He's got the bucket with the weird spectral stuff coming off of it. I picture him coming out of the woods. Like, he's a weirdo. Like, look at it. Look at the tree behind him. The tree has, like, skulls embedded in it. And he's all, got my bucket of goop from bees. You know what I mean? They like mountain goop the best. I don't know. He feels very, very weird to me, but I like him. Moving on, we've got, like I said, amazing reprint, right? So we've got Splendid Reclamation, 1 green and 3, sorcery. Return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Pretty straightforward, pretty strong. And it has awesome artwork featuring Wrenn and 7. Look at that, right? You've got these crazy vines that are just flowing out of Wrenn, bam, reclaiming all of the terrain around, returning it to beautiful nature. But it's crazy because Wrenn and 7 is like red and green aligned, so the nature being reconstituted almost looks like it's fire flowing outwards, which adds a different aspect to it. And Wrenn looks so dark and crazy like a stoked fire. Anyhow, that wraps up all the spoilers. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Big thank you to all my patrons. Links on the screen to my newest Innistrad lore video and the playlist of all the spoiler videos for Crimson Vow. Choose what you'd like to watch, and I'll see you next time.